Hello，大家好，歡迎嚟到 CHAT 六廠呢個再訪東亞系列1手中的羅盤，我哋 CHAT 六廠冬季項目嘅展場。我係 Sunnie 陳朗晴，我係呢一個展覽系列嘅聯合策展人。喺我身邊嘅咧係我嘅 partner， 亦都係呢一個展覽系列另一位策展人黃慧慧。我哋因為香港咧而家又面對另一波嘅疫情嘅高峰啦，咁所以包括 CHAT 六廠在內好多嘅美術館啊同埋展覽嘅空間咧，都而家都係唔能夠對外開放。咁而家我哋未能夠對外開放嘅期間咧，我哋就計劃咗有加開咗2場同參展嘅 artist 嘅一啲對話。希望喺開放重新開放展場之前咧，可以同大家分享。咁而家呢一個咧係第一場嘅對話，咁我哋咧就係揀咗呢一個作品係由澳洲嘅設計師戴修博士 Dr. Hugh Davies 創作嘅一個叫御神籤遊戲嘅一個裝置同埋一個遊戲嘅作品咧，係去介紹俾大家嘅。咁我哋呢個時候就請 Hugh 入嚟啦。Hugh, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello, Hugh. Welcome. Hello. Yeah. So nice to have you here. I mean, it's been, we've been, working on this project for almost a year since we started our conversation and invited you to share this work that you have previously presented in Japan and bring to Hong Kong for the first time. Of course, like for those who have come to see the exhibition or know you in person, we kind of know you like you have worked as a scholar, as a research fellow at RMIT in Melbourne, and your research is mainly focusing on the history and culture of games and gaming. But you also practice as a game designer. Can you explain a little bit about why this passion, like how this came along? Like, was it like a childhood thing, or how it became like a research focus of you? Yeah.
My interest in games started out probably my undergraduate study was in sculpture, and I worked in sculpture for a long period and still do. And then I studied media design and worked in media for a long time. And I always felt that games were an interesting combination of sculpture and media and sort of spatial media, I suppose. So particularly the idea of sort of moving through spaces and navigating through spaces in interesting and playful ways, really kind of like bled into gamescapes. And so for a lot of that time, I've been working in digital games, but I've also worked a lot in games heritage as a researcher. And that's sort of what led me into looking at games as modes of divination, which is something which I sort of really stumbled into. Particularly doing research in Japan in 2016, 2017, and realizing sort of deep histories of games and connecting a lot of games with very early modes of divination, and realizing this idea of kind of games as simulations of reality, and modes of divination which exist today in how video games are used in things like military simulations, but go way back to how games were used as kind of ways of peering into the future 4,000 to 5,000 years ago across several cultures.
Yeah. So Hugh, you briefly touched on how you came along with how you discover or how you learn about the connection between Japanese traditional culture and traditional games in association with divination. And actually, this set of game, the Omikuji Game, is exactly where is the brainchild of your residency and your discovery of this area. Can you briefly describe like why you decide to encapsulate this your research into this set of game, and how it is been presented in for this edition in a chat?
Yes. So this was a project that was developed at Tokyo Art and Space in Japan in 2017. And it was a much larger project than I was able to complete at that time. And it sort of sparked an ongoing area of research, which I'm still undertaking at this moment, which is looking at modes of premonition, fortune telling using games. And in this series of 30 draws, which is based on the traditional Japanese Omikuji or fortune telling cabinet, which are found at temples and shrines, I've adapted each of the draws to reveal a different aspect of fortune telling that has gamic or playful aspects.
And how does this set of game being kind of expanded and redeveloped restaged in chat? Can you share a little bit like how it actually works? And I also remember you added a screen, like a wooden screen, made of wood and paper in the installation. Why would you come up with this idea?
Yes, now these are very interesting questions. So this research was begun in 2017, but as I say, like I realized it was much larger, and I'm very interested in the ideas of the spaces of these draws, what each can encapsulate in terms of having a small game. And I guess that is what has changed from the original versions of this work, is that so many of the draws weren't populated. They didn't have games in them. And so that's something which I've been working on for the past few years, is to try and come up with games that will fit in each of these draws. But I'm also very interested in screen space, which is to say digital space. But I'm also looking at screen space beyond digital space. So looking at cinema screens, looking at film screens, and working within the Asia Pacific context, as so much of my research does in games and elsewhere. I'm also very interested in paper and silk screens and thinking about deep histories of screens and games in the Asia Pacific region. So I kind of wanted to connect the work with a screen in that way, and the screen, the shoji screen that mirrors against the Omikuji cabinet. There's kind of an architectural relationship in terms of these sort of these shapes of almost like pixels that kind of open and reveal information inside them. So I sort of wanted to allude to that relationship between screens and space.
So now we will proceed to a short demo of the Omikuji game. So shall we pick a few drawers and to show in the camera what it looks, and you can guide us through, Hugh, why you pick these games or divination games, and how it actually works. Shall we?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So yeah, please take us through, and Weiwei will open the drawers and show in the camera.
Great. Well, why don't we start with drawer number 15. So in this drawer, the player is presented with this small maze, which, and you have to navigate through the maze, navigate a small ball. It's actually a pachinko ball, which is a game, a gambling game in Japan, whereby, of course, people's fortunes can change through playing the game. But in this version, it's just a maze, and I'm sort of interested in mazes as playful modes of navigation that invite decision making, but it's also this kind of forking paths approach to moving through space. And in this maze, there are 4 different destinations that you can lead to, which lead to different draws.
Yeah. So here, as we mentioned just now, the game, these draws, one will actually lead to another. So it depending on which number the ball leads to, it goes to another draw.
Exactly. So, for example, if the draw leads to, say, draw number 5, we can go to draw number 27. We can go to draw number 27.
Okay. For you, like, it seems like the connection between draws are quite unintentional, but actually it's all under your design, isn't it?
Yes, all the draws lead to other draws. Every draw is connected. It's a kind of gamic database logic. And as you can see in this work, there are also draws within draws. And this draw leads to a key, and that key will open up draw number 5.
So for this draw, the direction, there's only one lead.
That's true. Some of the draws, like the previous draw, the maze draw, that led to 4 different draws, whereas this draw or this series of draws within draws only leads to 1 draw. Yep, draw number 5, which is a small locked safe, but you've been provided the key.
So Hugh, when you develop the routing, shall I say, the different routes of the drawers, how do you how does it work? Like, do you work with a computer, or you work with a mathematic formula? How does it work? Because it could lead to many different routes, right?
That's correct. So I've done it quite, as with this whole project, I've made everything quite manually. So rather than using digital for anything, I've tried to keep things manual. And with this draw, it leads to this sort of playful game object, which many children around the world are probably quite familiar with. People make them in playgrounds. And of course, it's also this decision-making tool, but also has this kind of divination element to it as well, whereby you can ask questions or reveal things, and it opens up and gives you dares or sends you in different directions or gives you different things to do. So quite a sort of popular form of origami, playground origami, that has a kind of like fortune-telling aspect. I think they're actually called origami fortune tellers, at least in some circles.
Yes. Well, in Hong Kong, I think this game is also quite popular among school children. We used to call it 東南西北, yeah, or north, south, east, west, yeah.
Yes. That's interesting. It sort of has a geomantic.
And then we fill in different phrases in the inside part, and help us to make decisions.
Yes. Yeah, well, I guess that's been a key thing that I've been quite interested in with the use of games in fortune telling. And that is its use in being used as a tool of making decisions. In fact, can we draw on draw number 22?
Okay, 22.
Draw number 22 is a case in point. It's like so many of East Asian and Chinese divination techniques. They rely, the notions of divination sort of focus on forces and energy and flows of the divine realm, which quite often connect with sort of symmetry, numbers. There's a logic to the games, I guess is what I'm saying. You're tapping into these divine forces. And with these moon blocks, as they're known, casting moon blocks, this is a traditional Chinese divination method
Yes.
which people in Hong Kong are probably familiar with, whereby 2 crescent moon-shaped blocks are thrown. Each has a yin side and a yang side. And depending on which way the blocks land, for example, one block may lie flat and the other way sort of cradled on its side, or they may both lie flat, or they both may lay on the crescent side. And depending on which way they lay, you can ask a question, and the answer is typically revealed in the throw. For example, if one lays flat and the other round, the answer is yes. If both lay flat down, the answer is no. And if they both sort of land uncertain and rock side to side, it generally means that there's some unclarity with the question.
So yeah, I think we have opened a few drawers already, and should we come back and wrap up a little bit? We have spent so much time working on this set, but without your presence, is there anything you want to share, how you feel about bringing this set of work to Hong Kong, and something that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, I'm actually very excited for the work to be in Hong Kong, because it was developed in Japan, but the modes of games that it draws on more often than not have Chinese origins, but they also connect globally and internationally into sort of more contemporary forms of games, things like cards and mahjong, and a lot of modes of fortune telling, palmistry, and others that are not just experienced in China or Japan, but have much more of an international connection. So Hong Kong feels like a really good place for this work to be presented.
係啦，都少少宣傳下啦。2月後咧，我哋其實有一場係由 Hugh Davies 去帶領嘅一場活動，咁可以話係一個現場嘅遊戲體驗，同時間亦都係由 Hugh 去帶領嘅一個lecture performance 啦，一個即係有個展演成分嘅一個演講。大家有興趣嘅可以上翻我哋 social media page 或者我哋嘅網站嗰度去睇翻詳情。So Hugh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.